Under Connect, process flows we've looked at. They've been around since CRM 2011. Those are the things at the top of any given form. We don't need to really drill down into those. You've seen what they look like probably. If you're curious about it, give us feedback, and we'll decide to cover that in a later session. I just showed you quote entry. Order entry is virtually the exact same thing. You can convert a quote into an order, and you can have all the same kind of rich data entry experience with that. The Interactive Service Hub now includes a knowledge base. I'll come back and show you that in just a minute. There's also a timer. When I created a case, you probably saw that. So I can put a timer directly on a case, and I can see based on the color of the timer exactly how I'm doing against a service level agreement goal. So I can link that to different fields to track exactly how long it's taken for each part of case resolution. Social case creation, that's a new capability that's built into CRM. It requires integration with a social tool. So if you've kind of seen this on the list and thought, oh cool, I'll be able to create cases directly out of social media. While that's technically true, what you need to know is CRM alone doesn't support that. You'll need a tool like Microsoft Social Engagement, which leverages the social integration natively to create those cases. And if you're on CRM Online, you're probably entitled to get Microsoft Social Engagement. We just did a webinar on that. If you'd like to learn more, request it. We'll do a follow-up on it sometime soon. So as an example, if you're a retailer, and you can monitor Twitter for complaints about your establishment, and those can be converted into cases to get responded to and resolved. So if you see someone who says, oh, I just had an awful time at the store that I went to where I bought something and it was spoiled. Well, you can actually monitor that, have that create a case in CRM, resolve the case, and even post that back out to Twitter so people know that you're very responsive as a service department. Mobility is a big deal. I won't open that up to show you, but mobility has gotten a huge makeover. If your customer service people are mobile, there's incredible options for them. And telephony, I'll demo for you too. So let's look at the knowledge base and telephony real briefly to show you what those look like. So going back over here into the Interactive Service Hub, since I happen to be on this page, I'm going to go ahead and start with telephony. Now, this telephony is directly out. If you have Skype or Skype for Business, you have full access to this. So if I click this phone call icon, I immediately get a pop-up saying, hey, you've made a phone call. Go ahead and record your notes here. Now, I can also, if I've got the Skype integration set up, it's actually going to pop my Skype up for me automatically and say, hey, you wanted to make a phone call, go ahead and click the dial. In fact, I did set it up, but I'm not going to do that now, or this person's going to wonder why I'm calling them. But all of that can happen automatically. There's also much better connectors for telephony now. So there's some third parties that provide ShoreTel and Cisco and Avaya types of connectivity that you can basically buy and install out of the box, and it works essentially the same way as I've just shown you here. On the knowledge base, if we go back to the dashboard, and I'm going to switch to the Knowledge Manager dashboard, and again, I'll need to look at some older data. There we go. So Knowledge Manager is now a richer experience. If you ever used the knowledge base or articles in CRM before, they were good, but what you can do in the knowledge base now is a much richer editing type of experience. So I will zoom in on this, and you can kind of see I can now insert rich media. I can put video in here. I can put pictures in here. All sorts of stuff can go into the Knowledge Manager. There's a process around capturing and publishing this. So if I'm a customer service person, I run into an issue that I think, hey, this might be one that comes up a lot. I can create my own article, but I might not be approved to actually approve it. There might be someone else who reviews it, tests it, and then makes it approved for everybody else to use. I can publish it so it can be available via the web, so customers can have self-service, or it can be internal only. I can insert it into my case, and I can either make it so that the knowledge base is public. In that case, if I insert it into my case and send the customer an email, it will just put a link to the website where it exists, and I can actually track whether they went and looked at it or not. Or if I don't have it published, I can just insert it directly into the body of the email. Tons of flexibility with it. This also has the option of using the Parature knowledge base, which takes it to an even better level. So let's say you're in manufacturing. Let's say you're in food manufacturing, and you frequently get questions about how to prepare the food, or maybe even complaints that are driven by misuse of your product. Somebody thought that it didn't give the experience they thought, and it's probably because they prepared it the wrong way. So you can create instructions and recipes and a knowledge base that people can use, And not only could you have them available for when a customer calls in to complain, but also just publicly available on your website. So the customer can search that on their own, whether you're using Parature or whether you're doing that straight out of CRM. Parature, for those of you who don't know, is another customer service product from Microsoft. Okay, good. I think we're kind of on time again now. So the last quadrant that we want to cover is this idea of knowing how we're doing, being able to constantly improve what we're doing. So we're going to talk mostly about these. I'll show you the voice of customer one briefly. So the first one is aggregate and calculated fields. So not a very glamorous one, but if any of you ever had to do anything where you calculated a value in CRM beyond something simple, you know that that could be painful. It's sort of a call the developers time because we need to add up all of the opportunities and store that value on the account. Well, now with aggregate and calculated fields, you can do that. So let's say you're a telecommunications firm and your customer service department is taking orders for you and doing order entry. And you want to be able to display recurring and non-recurring revenue directly on the quote form or the order form, or maybe even roll it up to the account form. Those are relatively simple calculations. You just have to look at the product type and be able to roll those calculations up. But all those roll-ups kind of make it complex. You roll it up to one level, then another, and if you had to write code for that in previous versions, that code got kind of dicey, and if the rules needed to change for some reason, you had to call the coders to change them, and if you don't have the same coder who wrote them, or it's been a year or more since they wrote them last, it can be really painful for them to get their head back around what happened and be able to rewrite all those tools in there. If it sounds painful, that's because it is. We've lived it a few times. We're glad we don't have to live it anymore. Aggregate and calculated fields let you go right into the same area where you can configure an entity, and you can define a field as aggregate, which means it's rolling up multiple values from a child record, or calculated, which means it's using multiple fields from the record you're on to calculate a field. And those can all be rules-based, kind of like Excel formulas. You can have your own filters and queries to say, only count values if they meet this type of criteria. They're pretty flexible. They're pretty powerful. We're actually going to do another webinar on Thursday. I think we'll probably have time to dive into that a little bit deeper. I'm going to skip and talk about SharePoint integration, and then I'll come back to voice of customer. So SharePoint integration allows organizations to do a better job of managing their documents. So you can have documents listed under the entity to which they belong. Now that's been around in some form or other since CRM 2011, and truth be told, it's only gotten a couple of moderate updates. One of the real nice ones is it now integrates with OneNote. So if you have users who are using their tablet or their phone and they're in the field and they want to take notes, they can actually go to the OneNote part of the application basically right there, and they can handwrite notes directly into that, and those are linked to the correct record inside of CRM. Now, the thing it doesn't do well is have a complex SharePoint hierarchy. So we've run into this ourselves where we say every single customer we have, every single client we serve has their own SharePoint website. And on those SharePoint websites, they have separate projects for each one of those. And we want to be able to organize their documents according to those things. But out of the box, the rules that CRM enables really kind of envisions one massive document library for everything. So the ability to get in and do some programmatic improvements to that has significantly improved. We've actually written a library to take care of that so that developers who want to do better SharePoint integration can add that library and can just call it, and it can automatically sync CRM to a broader range of SharePoint sites and libraries and so forth. So let's take a look at Voice of Customer as our last area of demo. Then we'll have a couple of wrap-up things to look at. Voice of Customer is actually still in preview mode. So it's Microsoft acquired an organization that did surveying, and the idea here is how can we do a better job of listening to customers and improving how we serve them. So if I look at this, I've got a bunch of sample surveys here. I'll just open the default one. I can interactively define surveys. I can use drag and drop to put different fields on the survey if I want to. I can have multiple pages on my surveys. I can have branching logic. I can associate these with workflows. The data that I'm gathering via these surveys is stored directly inside of CRM. I can make surveys private. I can make them public. I can allow people to take them only once. I can take them multiple times. I can trigger them based on workflows. So if you're in the customer service department and you say, hey, we'd actually like to survey our customers periodically and drive change based on what we learned. Here's a real life case study. An insurance company, a pharmacy benefit management company, they sell insurance for pharmacy benefits directly to other insurance companies who then package them and sell them to their customers or to large companies. They survey their customers, 10% of their customers every month. So by the end of the year, they've surveyed everybody at least once, sometimes a couple of times. They have a very simple survey. They just say, hey, how are we doing? Red, yellow, or green? This does not go to their end consumer customers. This goes to their big customers, which they only have a couple hundred of. So each one is very valuable to them. And if they have a red rating, they assign a case to it and set a very high priority, and the account manager has to follow up within 24 hours with either a resolution of what's setting them into red or a plan for getting them back. If it's a yellow one, they have a 1 week commitment to follow up, and they actually have a weekly meeting where they look at all the reds and yellows and they try to define how they can solve those, and they spin off chronic problems and say, how can we not just help this customer, but how can we help all customers? All that's driven automatically, pardon my pop-up, automatically directly out of CRM without them having to do anything else. So they get sent, they get responded to, the data gets brought in, cases get created, people get alerted, all without anybody having to do anything else. For someone like us, whenever we finish a project, we could actually automatically have a survey out saying, hey, how did we do? For a customer service team, whenever you close a service case, you can follow up with an electronic survey and say, how was our service? How can we help you better? So voice of customer, it's in late beta stage. It's scheduled to be generally released as a part of CRM 2016 with the first roll-up, which is due out in a few months here.